Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Allahumma 'allimna ma yanfa'una wanfa'na bima 'allamtana wa zidna 'ilman ya rabbal alamin. Allahumma arzuqna al-ikhlasa fil aqwali wal a'mal. Allahumma ij'al 'amalana fi ridaka amin ya rabbal alamin. Alhamdulillah, this is our ninth class in the explanation of Fiqhus Siyaam from the book Muktasar Sahih Muslim of Imam al-Munziri rahimahullah. So we begin with the new chapter Babu an-Nahyu an Siyam Yawm al-Adha wal Fitri, the prohibition of fasting on the day of Eid al-Adha and Eid al-Fitr. An Abi Ubayd Mawla ibn Azhar annahu qala shahidtu al-Eid ma Umar ibn al-Khattabi radiyallahu anhu faja'a فصلى ثم انصرف فخطب الناس فقال إن هذين يومان نهى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عن صيامهما يوم فطركم من صيامكم والآخر يوم تأكلون فيه من نسككم. The prohibition of fasting on the day of Eid al-Adha and Eid al-Fitr. These 2 days are the days of Eid. These 2 days are the days of Eid, and fasting on them is prohibited. These two festivals of Muslims, they follow two great acts of obedience: fasting in Ramadan and performing Hajj at the sacred house of Allah. These 2 days they succeed these two acts of devotion. The day of Eid al-Adha is named so because it is a day when people draw closer to Allah by offering sacrifices and slaughtering sacrificial animals as an act of devotion. The day of Eid al-Fitr, which is also known as the day of breaking the fast, is named as such because it is linked to the worship of breaking the fast after Ramadan. Just as a Muslim seeks closeness to Allah by fasting in Ramadan, they also seek closeness to Allah by breaking their fast on Eid. A Muslim does not fast except as an act of worship and obedience to Allah. Allah commanded His servants to fast, so they fasted. On the day of Eid, He commanded them to break their fast, so they broke it and expressed gratitude to Allah. In doing so, they remain obedient to Allah and follow His command, both when He commanded them to fast and when He commanded them to not fast on these days. In this hadith, Abu Ubaid, rahimahullah, freed slave of Ibn Azhar, he says that I attended the Eid prayer with Umar ibn al-Khattab raziyallahu anhu. So he came out, he prayed, and then turned to deliver the khutbah to the people. Then he said, these are 2 days that Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam forbade fasting on. And these are the days of your breaking from fasting, and the other is the day on which you eat from your sacrificial animals. This hadith indicates that the Eid khutbah, it follows the prayer. Umar radiallahu anhu, first he performed the prayer and then he addressed the people. It also highlights that the Eid khutbah should include rulings related to the occasion, and it should be appropriate to the occasion, as people need reminders about these matters, especially given the passage of time, because it comes once in a year. So Umar radiallahu anhu said that these are 2 days that Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam forbade fasting on. Thus, fasting on these days is prohibited, and a Muslim is not allowed to fast on them, neither on the day of Eid al-Fitr nor on the day of Eid al-Adha. Then he says the day of your breaking from fasting. This refers to day of breaking the fast after Ramadan, which is known as Eid al-Fitr. The other day is the day on which you eat from your sacrificial offerings, which means nusukikum. Nusukikum, nusuk refers to sacrifice, as mentioned in the verse, Qul inna salati wa nusuki wa mahyaya wa mamati lillahi rabbil alamin. Nusuk means sacrifice. The meaning of you eat from your sacrificial offerings, nusukikum yawmun ta'kuluna min nusukikum, is that people in wherever they live, towns, cities, they eat, yani those who are not performing Hajj, they eat from their sacrifices on this day. Likewise, the pilgrims also, those who are performing Hajj, they also eat from their hadi, from their offerings. So it is a day of eating. The day of Eid is a day of eating. The day of Eid al-Fitr is a day of breaking the fast, and the day of Eid al-Azha is a day of eating from the sacrificial meat. The one who offers a sacrifice is encouraged to eat from it, as the Prophet ﷺ himself did when he slaughtered 100 camels. He took meat from each one of these 100 camels, cooked it, and eat from it. Thus, in conclusion, fasting on these 2 days is prohibited. One of them is Eid ul Fitr, and the other of them is Eid al Adha. Babu Karahiyati Siyami Ayyam Tashriq, the chapter concerning dislike of fasting on the days of Tashriq, Ayyam Tashriq. So, this hadith is from An Nubayshata al Huzali. قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أيام التشريق أيام أكل وشرب وفي رواية وذكر لله. The days of Tashriq are days of eating and drinking, and another narration it says, and remembering Allah. These are the days of remembering Allah. The days of Tashriq are the 3 days following Eid ul Azha. Eid ul Azha falls on the 10th of Zilhijj, and the days of Tashriq are the 11th, 12th, and 13th of Zilhijj. These days are mentioned in the concluding verses concerning the Hajj, the verses which relates to Hajj in Surah Al-Baqarah, wherein Allah says, and remember Allah wadhkurullaha fi ayyamin ma'dudat. Remember Allah during the appointed days. So these are the days that are the appointed days, ayyam ma'dudat or ma'lumat. These are the days which are the days of Tashriq. Because in ancient times, in the olden times, people would preserve and dry the meat of sacrificial animals by cutting it into pieces, applying salt to it, and then spreading it under the sun. This process was called Tashriq, as it involved exposing the meat to the sunlight for preservation. Since they engaged in this process during these 3 days, the days they came to be named after it. Thus, Ayyamut Tashriq, because these are the days they would dry their meat in the sun. In the past, this was the only way to preserve the meat, as refrigerators did not exist. But today, Alhamdulillah, meat can be stored in refrigerators. But back then, drying and salting were necessary for long time preservation. And still, people do this. They dry the meat in the sun after applying salt, and then they eat it after frying or deep frying all through the year. These days are also called Ayyam and Nahar, days of sacrifice. 10, 11, 12, 13, because slaughtering for Hajj offerings, Hadi and Udhiya, is permitted until the sunset of the 13th of Dhul Hijj. Thus, the time for sacrifice it begins on Eid al Adha and extends until the end days of the Tashriq, which means sacrifice can be offered until 13th, yani until the Asr, before the sunset on the 13th. Initially, it was forbidden to store sacrificial meat, but this prohibition was later abrogated. النويش الهزلي رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أيام التشريق أيام أكل وشرب وفي رواية وذكر لله. The phrase days of eating and drinking, it indicates that fasting is prohibited on these days. It is not allowed to fast during them. As narrated in Sahih al-Bukhari and other sources, the Prophet ﷺ did not permit fasting on the days of Tashriq except for the pilgrim who could not afford a hadi, sacrificial animal. The preferred method for a pilgrim, for a haji who is unable to, who does not have a sacrificial animal, then he has to fast for 10 days. He has to fast for 10 days, 3 days during the season of Hajj, and 7 days is Arajatum when he comes back to his family. So these 3 days, it is preferred for a pilgrim to fast these 3 days before the day of Arafah, like 6, 7, and 8. He can fast on 6th, 7, and 8th of 6, 7, and 8 of Zilhijj. However, if this is not possible, they may fast the 3 days immediately after Eid, which is during the days of Tashriq, 11, 12, 13. Thus, fasting on the days of Tashriq is prohibited except for a pilgrim who does not find a sacrificial animal. Babu Sawmu Yawmil Isnain. This is the chapter concerning fasting Monday. An Abi Qatadata radiyallahu anhu anna Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam su'ila an sawmil isnaini faqala fihi wulidtu wa fihi unzila alayya. Chapter concerning fasting on Monday. Monday is a virtuous day, and various narrations encourage fasting on it. Prophet ﷺ used to fast on this day as indicated in multiple ahadith. Among them is the hadith Among them is the hadith of Abu Qatada raziyallahu anhu, which is a part of a longer narration, previously mentioned in the chapter of fasting on the day of Arafah, if you remember, in the last class, which is the most comprehensive hadith on the nafl fasting, the class before the yesterday's class. We talked about this fasting on Monday as well. So in this hadith, Abu Qatada raziyallahu anhu, he says that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was asked concerning fasting on a Monday. So he said that it is a day I was born, and it is a day revelation came down upon me. So this hadith highlights the great blessings the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam received on this day. He was born on a Monday. He was commissioned as a prophet. He was commissioned as a prophet on this on a Monday, and the revelation first descended upon him on a Monday. And there is a difference between he being made a prophet and he being made a Rasul. He became a prophet. He became prophet with Iqra bismi rabbika allazi khalaq. And then he became a messenger when he was commanded to preach now to his near and dear ones. So at that time he became a messenger. And all of this happened on a Monday. Due to these significant events, the Prophet ﷺ observed fastings on Mondays, recognizing its virtues. And there are other ahadiths which suggest that it is not because of his birth. Rather, he says that the deeds are presented to Allah Ta'ala on Monday and Thursday. And I wish and I would love to be in the state of fasting when my deeds are presented in front of Rabbul Alamin. For matters related to the birth of the Prophet ﷺ, the correct approach is to follow the Sunnah and adhere to his guidance. Prophet ﷺ marked this occasion by fasting on Mondays, not through celebratory gatherings or other customs. Those who introduce such practices fall under the warning of his statement, "Man amila amalan laysa alayhi amruna fahuwa rad." Whoever performs an action that is not in accordance with our matter and our religion, fahuwa mardud, it will be rejected. Thus, fasting on Mondays, Allah follows the example of the Prophet ﷺ, while unauthorized innovations in commemorating his birth contradicts his guidance. Babu Karahiyati Sawmil Jum'ati Munfaridan. Chapter concerning singling out Friday for fasting. Hadith 6 to 5. Hadith 6 to 5. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا يصوم أحدكم يوم الجمعة إلا أن يصوم قبله أو يصوم بعده. This chapter discusses the prohibition of singling out Friday for fasting without fasting a day before it or after it. Therefore, one should not fast on Fridays alone. Rather, they should either fast on Thursday along with it or fast on Saturday along with it. It is mentioned in the hadith that Prophet ﷺ once entered upon Juwayriya raziyallahu anha on a Friday when she was fasting. So he asked her, "Did you fast yesterday on Thursday?" She said no. He then asked, "Do you intend to fast tomorrow, Saturday?" She said no. So Rasulullah ﷺ said, "Then break your fast." This indicates that fasting Friday or singling out Friday for fasting is discouraged unless it is accompanied by fasting on a day before or a person intends to fast the day after. Among the reasons given by scholars, the hikam, the wisdoms behind the ruling that Friday is not to be fasted or singled out for fasting is a day because it is a day of preparation for Jummah, including attending the prayer, listening to the khutbah, engaging in worship, which requires energy and attentiveness. Additionally, some scholars they mention that Friday is considered the weekly Eid al-Usbu'i, making it inappropriate to fast it alone. So if one fasts Friday while also fasting either Thursday or Saturday, then there is no issue. The key is that Friday should not be singled out for fasting. Abu Hurairah raziyallahu anhu in this hadith, he says that none of you should fast. Rasulullah ﷺ said, none of you should fast on Friday unless he fasts a day before it or a day after it. The prohibition applies specifically to fasting Friday alone, singling it out for fasting. However, if one fasts Thursday along with it or intends to fast Saturday along with it, then it is permissible. There is also a hadith in which Prophet ﷺ discouraged fasting on Saturdays. But scholars have clarified that this prohibition applies to deliberately singling out Saturday for fasting. And in fact, there are some scholars who even weakened this hadith, which is talking about singling out Saturday for fasting. If someone fasts on Saturday incidentally, such as when it coincides with the day of Arafah or the day of Ashura or the white days, then it is not prohibited. This understanding is supported by this hadith as well, which we are discussing, where the Prophet ﷺ allowed fasting Friday if accompanied by fasting on Thursday or Saturday. This means that fasting Saturday is not forbidden if it is done in conjunction with another reason rather than being singled out intentionally for fasting. Hadith 6 to 6 عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لا تختصوا ليلة الجمعة بقيام من بين الليالي ولا تخصوا يوم الجمعة بصيام من بين الأيام إلا أن يكون في صوم يصومه أحدكم. This hadith from Abu Hurairah radhiyallahu anhu emphasizes that it is not permissible to single out the night of Friday for night prayers or the day of Friday for fasting without a valid reason. Abu Hurairah radhiyallahu anhu, he says that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Do not single out the night of Friday for standing in night in prayer among the other nights and to the exclusion of other nights, and do not single out Friday for fasting among the days unless it is part of a person who fasts regularly, unless it is part of fast one of you regularly observes." Prophet ﷺ prohibited assigning special significance to the night of Friday by engaging in night prayers, distinct from other nights and to the exclusion of other nights, to single out this night only. And I have seen this happening in our families, my family especially. I have seen this happening. Those old women, or those who have reached the age of 70, 75, 80, 85, they do this. They wake up midnight, 12, 12:30, take a bath with so much care that I just can't describe it. Even if you walk near their bucket and if your shadow falls into it, they throw that water. I did it many times with my maternal grandmother. Deliberately, I did this. She used to fill the bucket, I cross from there, and she throws all of it. And then again, she fills it, and again, I walk past the bucket, again, she throws it. And I did it multiple times. And she used to cry and shout. Anyway, so I have seen this happening, and still there are old women who have reached the age of 80, 85. My maternal grandmother's sister, she still does it. She's alive. May Allah keep her alive and give her hidayah guidance. She does all of these things. Wakes up at 12:30 in the night on Friday, specifically 12, 12:30, and does not sleep after that. She keeps on doing ibadat until it is Fajr, and even until it is the time for the Jummah, and then they pray the Jummah, and just like they are praying Jummah in the house. They pray Jummah like 2 units only. Though it is not as such. If a woman is praying at her house, even if a man misses the Jum'ah, and if he's praying on his own, then he has to pray it like Zuhar. It is Zuhar then. It is not no Jum'ah. But anyway, this is because you should not single out Friday for the ibadah. This is because such an act would imply that Friday night has a unique merit for night prayer, which has no clear evidence in the Sunnah. Likewise, he forbade Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam fasting exclusively on Friday unless it coincides with regular fast, such as someone who fasts every other day, Siyam Dawood or Saum Dawood alayhi salam. Also, like if one of the white days it falls on it on a Saturday, like if this person is fasting one day from the beginning of the month, one day from the middle of the month, one day towards the end of the month, to make these 3 days fasting in a month. And if this one day which he is used to fast, if falls on a Friday, then there is no harm in doing that. This hadith, or like fasting 6 days of Sawwal separately, and if this one of these days falls on a Saturday, and his intention is not to fast on a Saturday, but his intention is to fast these 6 days of Shawwal, and one of these days is falling on Saturday, maybe because it is week off for this person. Then if he wants to fast on a Saturday without any specific and special thought about the Saturday, then there is no harm. This hadith provides a crucial principle that acts of worship are tawqifiyya, must be based on evidence. They are mawquf upon the narrations or the text from Quran and Sunnah, and they should not be introduced merely based on assumptions about a day's virtue. Even though Friday is well known virtuous day, there are so many ahadiths concerning the virtues of Friday. Still, Prophet ﷺ forbids assigning special worship to its night or day without specific proof, which means that even if you know a day is virtuous, you cannot invent ibadat in that day until you have an evidence to support that particular ibadah for that particular virtuous day. And this principle extends to other occasions as well, where people might designate acts of worship without clear textual evidence, such as the 27th of Rajab, which some believe to be the night of Isra and Miraj, despite no authentic evidence specifying the date. Even if the exact date were known, any special worship associated with that particular date would require explicit evidence, because ibadat are tawqifiyah. Thus, while Friday holds great significance in Islam, worship on this day should align with the Sunnah without introducing innovations based on personal reasoning, whims, or cultural practices. Another chapter, chapter Babun صوم ثلاثة أيام من كل شهر, fasting 3 days in every month, fasting 3 days of every month. عن معاذة العدوية رضي الله عنها أنها قالت سألت سألت عائشة رضي الله عنها زوج النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أكان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يصوم من كل شهر 3 أيام؟ قالت نعم. فقلت لها من أي أيام الشهر كان يصوم؟ قالت لم يكن يبالي من أي أيام الشهر يصوم. Fasting 3 days of every month is a sunnah emphasized in numerous ahadith. Prophet ﷺ recommended this practice to several of his companions, and it is considered a means of attaining the reward of fasting for a lifetime. Hadith of Abu Qatada radhiyallahu anhu states that Prophet ﷺ, he says, fasting 3 days of every month along with fasting Ramadan ila Ramadan is like fasting the entire year. Kasiyam id-dahr. Similarly, Prophet ﷺ said advice to Abu Huraira radhiyallahu anhu, wherein he said that Khalili Awsani, my close companion, advised me to do so such and such things, and one of those things were to fast 3 days of every month. To fast 3 days of every month. This hadith from Mu'aza al-Adawiyya radhiyallahu anha, she says that I asked Aisha radhiyallahu anha, wife of the Prophet ﷺ, that did the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, akan Rasulullah ﷺ, did Rasulullah ﷺ yasum salas yam min kulli shahr, used to fast 3 days of every month? She said yes. I then asked her, Mu'aza al-Adawiyya radhiyallahu anhu, she says, asked her from which days of the month did he fast. So Aisha radhiyallahu anha replied, he did not mind, la yubali, he did not mind from which days of the month he fasted. This hadith indicates that fasting 3 days each month was a consistent practice of the Prophet ﷺ. Aisha radhiyallahu anha confirmed that Prophet ﷺ observed this fast but did not specify particular days, meaning he would sometimes fast at the beginning, sometimes in the middle, and sometimes at the end of the month. This flexibility allows Muslims to fast according to their convenience rather than restricting themselves to specific dates. Now the question is, are these 3 days which Rasulullah Sallallahu which Aisha Radhiyallahu anha mentioned about Rasulullah Sallallahu fasting, are these the same as the Ayyam Bid, the white days? Some narrations encourage fasting on white days, like the narrations of Abu Darda Radhiyallahu or Abu Darda Radhiyallahu anhu, wherein explicitly Rasulullah Sallallahu mentioned that if at all you fast 3 days in a month, then make them 13th, 14th, and 15th of the lunar month. These are known as the Ayyam Bid because the moon is full and the light of the moon is full during these days. So these days are known as Ayyamul Bid. Bid is from white Bid, Baid. It is the plural for Baida. So the question arises, were the 3 days the Prophet ﷺ regularly fasted are the same as the white days or different? If they are different, then it would mean he fasted 6 days per month, 3 randomly and then 3 Ayyam Bid. But there is no evidence supporting this. The correct understanding, as derived from the hadith, is that the Prophet ﷺ fasted any 3 days of the month. As Aisha radhiyallahu anha said, La yubali, he would not care whether it is at the beginning of the month or middle of the month or end of the month. So he never made it binding upon himself to fast specific days. Thus, fasting these 3 days per month carries great rewards, and while fasting the white days is encouraged, one is not restricted to those dates alone. The main objective is to maintain the habit of fasting 3 days each month, following the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. It is narrated in the hadith of Abu Dhar radhiyallahu anhu that the Prophet ﷺ said to him, Ya Abu Dhar, إذا صمت من الشهر 3 أيام فصم 13 14 و15. O Abu Dhar, if you fast 3 days of the month, then fast the 13th, 14th, and 15th. This hadith highlights the special merit of the white days, Ayyam al-Bid, which are named as such because they coincide with the full moon when its light is at its peak. However, for those who wish to fast 3 days at the beginning, middle, or the end of the month, the matter is flexible. This is supported by the narration of Mu'adha al-Adawiyya radhiyallahu anha, as it has come in Sahih Muslim, where Aisha radhiyallahu anha stated that Prophet ﷺ did not specify particular days for fasting. Thus, one attains the virtue of fasting 3 days of every month, regardless of whether they are the white days or any other day. It is incorrect to assume that the virtue is limited only to fasting the white days. Rather, if a person fasts at the beginning, middle, or end of the month, or distributes the days throughout the month, one at the beginning, one in the middle, one at the end of the month, or howsoever he wishes, they will still achieve the same reward. Before we end, or before one, they will take one more hadith. Uh, sh- there is a fatwa of Shaykh bin Baz rahimahullah concerning this matter, fasting the 3 white days. I talked about this yesterday as well. He said that the well established authentic ahadith from Rasulullah ﷺ do not specify the white days. Rather, he would fast whenever he wished, as is evident from the hadith of Abdullah ibn Umar radiyallahu anhu in Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, and the hadith of Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu in the Sahihain, and the hadith of Abu Darda in Sahih Muslim. And these ahadiths are far more authentic than the hadith of Abu Zar radiyallahu anhu, which we just saw, wherein specific mention of 13th, 14th, and 15th is there. So, in comparison to this hadith, all other hadiths are far more authentic. Thus, Shaykh bin Baz further, rahimahullah, explained that if a person fasts 3 days from the first, or the beginning, or the middle, and or the last 10 days of the month, they will attain the same reward. However, if these fasts coincide with the white days, then it is even better, as it reconciles all the narrations. In that case, we would have acted upon all the narrations altogether. Therefore, if someone fasts 3 days at the beginning, middle, or end of the month, or distributes them throughout, the matter is flexible. When Aisha radhiyallahu anha was asked, concerning the fast of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she said, "Lam yakun la yubali min ayyi ayyam shahr yasum." He would not really pay attention to which part or days of the month Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would fast. So he did not mind from which days to fast in the month. The hadiths concerning fasting 3 days of every month are numerous and highlight its great merit. A Muslim should strive to make this a consistent habit, whether by fasting the white days, or fasting on separate days, or fasting at any convenient time during the month. The key is maintaining regularity in fasting 3 days of every month. Uh, before taking up the next hadith, there is one statement in this next hadith. We will only talk about that portion of the hadith. This is Babu Karahiyati Sardi Siam, fasting and a dislike of fasting continuously without breaking the fast. And a person fast continuously each single day. So this is the hadith concerning that issue only. And here Rasulullah ﷺ is talking about something which is on the next page, because the Shaykh ended the discussion with it and he delayed discussion on this hadith to the next class. So he says that this portion, okay, wasum, this portion, he only talked about this. He says, "Wasum min kulli ashrati ayyamin yawman walaka ajru tis'atin." Okay, so he only talked about this portion, which means that fast one day in every 10 days and you will receive the reward of 9. Why did he speak about only this portion? Because it relates to what we studied in the previous hadith, fasting 3 days in a month, because this relates to exactly the same thing. Because this portion of the hadith is actually encouraging fasting 3 days every month. This is why in the statement of attributed to Ibn Baz rahimahullah, in which he referred to the hadith of Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As radiyallahu anhuma from Sahih al-Bukhari and Muslim, which indicates this only, yani this narration, which means if a person fasts one day in every 10 days, because if a person has to fast 3 days in a month, so it works out to be one day every 10 days. So if a person fasts one day in every 10 days, then by the end of a month, they will have fasted 3 days, which exactly translates to what we studied in the previous hadith. Since the month consists of 30 days, fasting one day in every 10 results in 3 days of fasting per month. The reward for a good deed is multiplied by 10. So, fasting one day in every 10 grants the reward of the remaining 9 days also, isn't it? And this is the reason this statement of Rasulullah ﷺ is here. Wasum min kulli ashrati ayyamin yawman. Fast one day out of every 10 days, and you will have the reward for the remaining 9 days as well. Which means as if you fasted those remaining 9 days as well, though you did not fast. But in terms of reward, it will be rewarded as if you fasted those 9 days also. This is what is mean by fast one day in every 10 days, and you will receive the reward of 9. Meaning the remaining 9 days, as al hasanatu bi ashri amsaliha, and also this qaida is repeated in Quran in Suratul An'am, ayah number 160 as well. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik.